Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Interjections. Today on the podcast, we give you a rundown of the top 7 teams in Serie. The boys give their predictions for the season, and of course, we talk about the rumored signing of Benjamin Pavard. Thanks for joining. Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 4 of Interjections. We have a busy agenda for this podcast. We're going to do a Serie breakdown, talk to you about all the ingoing and outgoing transfers for the season. But before we dive into that, we have Irfan with us today. Irfan, you missed the last episode. Just curious to get your thoughts. I know you listened to the last episode. I'll give you the floor. What did you think? Did you have any thoughts you wanted to get in there?
Yeah. You all did a great job. Without me, it felt like, a good, Dzeko replacing Lautaro or something like that. Since, the A squad wasn't available, but it was great. It was great listening. I especially liked the discussion on the hairline, of our team. That was excellent. And I'm sad I missed it because I feel like I would have been even more animated than all of you were with the state of our transfer window. But it's great to be back, and I'm sure I'll be chiming in with some frustrations as this podcast goes along. It's good to be back.
Did you have any thoughts on Jay claiming that Leao is going to win the Capocannoniere?
I purposely ignored that. Didn't want to bring that up. Thank you, Andrew. Now you've got me triggered for the whole episode. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get into our glorious cousins today. But yes, no comment on Leao winning Capocannoniere.
All right. Well, let's get started with the league preview. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to go through each team, give you a quick overview of the transfers, pass it to one of the guys who will just give us their thoughts on the team. And then once we do that for the first, big 7 teams in the league, we'll go ahead and give you some predictions. I'm going to start off with Napoli. It's been a somewhat eventful window for Napoli. Of course, they had out, Rudy Garcia in. They're keeping the same shape. They're keeping the same formation. They're going to go with the 4-3-3. In terms of transfers, Jay's cousin has left Bayern, so Kim is out. Petagna went to Monza, and looks like close to joining the Saudis. In terms of ingoing transfers, there was some big news this morning, actually. They signed Gabri Viega from Celta. He's a midfielder. I assume he's going to replace Zielinski. And then we've got a Dutch defensive midfielder, Cayeste, and then a defender from Red Bull, Natan, as their ingoing transfers. So last year they had 90 points. Miko, break it down for me. How's Napoli going to look this year?
Actually, I read that Zielinski is going to stay. The latest was that he's not going to Saudis, but I think they need to renew him before. But anyway, I think Napoli is going to continue from where they ended, but changing the coach and not changing the squad too much is maybe going to hurt them a bit, because they can't improve from what they showed everyone last season. So I feel like they won't be winning the title. They won't be double winners now. But the big things are, of course, that they won't lose any offensive weapons. So Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia will stay. Also Raspadori and Simeone.
Do you not feel like they've already lost Kvaratskhelia in a way? I feel like that guy hasn't performed since March or February of this year. It was like he was found out. His tricks just weren't working. It just felt like the magic wasn't there for the second half of the season,
Yeah, I get you. He wasn't as good in the latter part of the season. That could be one factor also why I don't see them winning. I don't see them getting 90 points. I don't know if they can get even 80. Well, maybe, but I don't see them winning. But I feel like they will be in the top 4.
Who do you see winning?
I think it's between Inter and Juve. That's my hot take. Very hot.
I think Kim is a big loss for them. I think he was really good, and I don't feel like they've done an adequate job replacing him. Miko mentioned losing Spalletti is actually a pretty big deal. I don't rate Rudy Garcia nearly as high. I don't think they'll be as good as they were last year. I think everything kind of clicked for them last year, but like Miko said, I do expect them to be in the top 4, but I'm not sure I would put them at like the top of the title hunt.
Kim and Kvara were pretty much nobodies when Napoli bought them, you know what I mean? Can lightning strike twice, and can they replace these nobodies who became stars with other nobodies to become stars? Can that happen?
Yeah, unlikely.
If they're Milan, maybe.
Well, when you look at Napoli's like projected 11, they're going to roll out a pretty poor defense. Romani and our former player Juan Jesus are going to be their starting center backs. This Natan guy they signed from Germany isn't even projected to start. They actually have Raspadori starting at winger tomorrow, more than likely because of injuries. The squad is definitely worse than last year, unless one of these 3 signings that they spent about 50 million on turned out to be another diamond in the rough.
Actually, this Nathan, how do you spell it? Nathan. He's not even from Germany. He's from Brazil. He's the Red Bull Bragantino, this club. So,
Well,
so it's like even more
on Red Bull.
Even more random guy. Yeah, I don't know about the defense. How are they gonna survive without Kim? But yeah, I feel like they have the quality to make it to top 4, but not enough for the championship.
Just to follow up on your Zielinski point, so his contract does expire next summer, so they either need to extend him or sell him, and we should have a resolution on that in the next couple of weeks, you'd think.
Yeah.
What's happened with Anguissa? Is he injured? I haven't watched any of Napoli's friendlies, but I'm not seeing him in like any of the predicted lineups or even like the season projections. Are they just expecting this what's his name, Viega guy to replace him?
So for what it's worth, I'm looking at the Gazzetta probable formations, and Anguissa is starting tomorrow based on what they're showing me.
All right, well, that put me in my place.
All right.
Way to humiliate me, but okay.
I'm just trying to give the listeners factual information after lying to them about Natan being from Germany.
I don't know. From the discussion I just saw people, putting their midfielders as Zielinski, Lobotka, and the Viega guy. And that seemed to be pretty unanimous from what I saw. So I don't know if they thought Anguissa might take a bit of a bench role, but I thought he was one of the most underrated performers, last season.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was so slick on the ball and his dribbling was so good in tight spaces. I felt that was an underrated component in their game.
Yeah, I definitely, when the news broke this morning about the Vega signing, I definitely thought he was going to be the Zielinski replacement, and they'd be rolling with the midfield 3 of Anguissa, Lobotka, and Vega.
Yeah.
All right.
I could see them finishing about second to third. I have trouble imagining that they're going to keep this same magic about them last season, where things were just in such a great mood for so long. And they just built up this insurmountable lead. I feel like it'll probably be more even this season. I think this season is probably one of the tighter Scudetto and top 4 races in recent memory.
Yeah, to your point, they built out such a huge lead last season in the Scudetto race. One, they probably could have taken their foot off the gas a little bit because they were focusing on the Champions League. They made it all the way to the quarterfinals. But 2, you saw clubs like Inter and perhaps Milan pretty much give up on the Scudetto chase in favor of just trying to get a top 4 spot because they were more worried about the Champions League. So maybe the margin of victory for Napoli last year was a bit embellished by just how good of a start they got off to in September to December, January.
Yeah.
All right. So second place, and I feel like if you asked someone on the street who finished second in the league last year, they'd Yes, Inter. But the actual answer is Lazio, who edged Inter by a point. So they'll be playing Champions League football this year. They sold Milinkovic-Savic to Saudi Arabia for 40 million or whatever it was. And they've splashed some money around as a result. So there's been an influx of American talents into the league this year. There's been 4 or 5 marquee American signings. Lazio with one of them, they signed Castellanos, who's a forward from New York City. They took Isaacson, who is a midfielder from Denmark. Apparently, they're close to signing Joris as a reserve keeper. And they also signed a trio of players from Juventus on loan, including Rovella. Jay, break down Lazio for me.
I was hoping you'd have me break down Milan, but
Yeah,
okay.
I was wondering about that.
Don't worry, there are 7 teams and 3 of you guys. We're mixed you.
Lazio's hard to call. I mean, Milinkovic, they're one of those teams where they have a small group of big players, and then the rest are just kind of supporting stars, you know what I mean? To lose one of those big guys in Milinkovic-Savic, I think is pretty significant. I don't know how they'll react to it. I don't even know who's going to replace him in the lineup.
It could be Kamada, who I failed to mention in my preview.
Yeah.
They also have Cataldi.
Cataldi's the DM, so he'll probably start as the DM. I guess they'll stay with Luis Alberto as like the most offensive of the CMs, although sometimes he plays in that deep line playmaker role as well. And then, yeah, you're right. Kamada will probably take Milinkovic-Savic's place as that goal-scoring midfielder. Although, he's adjusting to a new league. He's, from what I've seen, I thought he was used to playing closer to goal, Although Milinkovic-Savic did get forward a lot, he was still a CM as opposed to an AM, you know what I mean? Whereas I think Kamada is like an out-and-out AM. So we'll see what that adaptation is like. I feel like they have a reliable coach in Serie, obviously a former Scudetto winner, won the Europa League with Chelsea, so he's not the kind of coach that will capitulate, I think. But Lazio have a history of just bombing the Champions League, or Europe for that matter. So I could see that going wrong for them. Maybe they have difficulty keeping up with the busy schedule in the first half of the season, and that impacts their second half of the season and where they finish. But it's so hard to say. I could see them finishing anywhere between 3rd to 6th, to be honest. Maybe even lower, depending on how some of these signings adapt. And the big question for me is Immobile. I can't recall him looking as poor and as sluggish as he did last season. I think there was an injury or 2, but yeah, it was the first time we saw like a notable decline in Immobile, I felt, He's now 33 or 34. I don't know if they can rely on him to score them 20-something goals, as he has done for several seasons. But then again, Immobile's worst season in recent memory coincided with them finishing 2nd last season, So who knows? I don't know anything about this Castellanos guy. To me, it still depends on how their big players will perform. And they have less of them now. Instead of having Milinkovic-Savic, Luis Alberto, and Immobile, they only have Alberto and Immobile. So I suspect they'll struggle, to be honest.
Careful about Immobile. He's going to be our main target next summer. Probably an Inter player in 2025, maybe 2026.
We'll break the record for, the transfer fee over 34.
Serie A experience. But on Lazio, I agree with you. I was expecting them to spend more money and spend money better than they did with the sale of Milinkovic-Savic. I think they'll be good again this year. But to be honest, even looking last year at their lineup, when you look at their lineup, you look at it on paper, I think they exceeded expectations by ending up 2nd. I think this year, again, it's going to come down to Sarri, who I think is just a really good coach when it comes to Serie A. I think he knows what he's doing. He's good at getting results. He's a lot like Allegri in that way. And so I feel like he's going to keep them competitive. But when I look at the squad, I don't even see another 2nd place finish. So much of it will depend on what the other teams do, but it'll be interesting to see kind of where they end up, because looking at them now, I don't feel like they're going to be that great. But if Immobile can find his form again, and given Sarri's coaching, it's definitely possible, I guess, that they will surprise again.
Yeah, I feel like Sarri's the kind of coach who needs more time to get better with his team. I mean, it's a pretty obvious thing for any coach, but Sarri's Napoli really grew into their Sarri ball, as they used to say. I feel like he didn't have that time with Chelsea or with Juve, obviously, but he has been given that time with Lazio. So maybe that'll yield some results. And to be honest, I probably sold Lazio a little bit short because Kanye was really big for them last year, and Felipe Anderson. Yeah, he's never absent. You know what I mean? I guess
Especially
Pedro is and Pedro's honestly holding it together pretty well for a 48-year-old. So yeah, maybe I sold them a little bit short.
When you talk about old teams in this league, normally you go straight to Inter because the average age of our team last year was ridiculously high because we had two 40-year-olds playing. But Lazio is kind of taking that mantle now. You've got Immobile, Romagnoli, Vecino, who are all over the age of 30. I think Sakani he's like 30 years old, right? Like he was at Verona.
No, he's 20, like 25, isn't he? Who's Sakani?
He is 28.
All right.
Yeah, split the difference
I'm off today.
Anyway, it's an older team, and you just worry, like, is this team really going to get better? I can't find you a player on this Lazio team sheet who I look at and say they're going to be better this season than they were last season. It just felt like everything broke right last season. The team's getting older.
How old is Kamada? 27, so he's not young either, but he's in a good age to contribute immediately. I don't know if age is the biggest factor for Lazio. Immobile for sure, but I think the others will hold okay for now. They're not at that debilitating age yet, like Dzeko or Kolarov, you know what I mean? So I don't think age will be the biggest factor.
And today they were linked to Samardzic. So if they can sign him, then
too soon.
That could
too soon.
Rejuvenate their midfield a bit.
I don't want to get too derailed, but can I just ask, now that that saga is conclusively over, what do you guys think? Do we make the right decision?
Yeah, fuck that guy. His father.
Yeah, I will curse the name Mladen Samardzic for as long as I live. It's hard to say. I mean, like, if they wanted that part of the sell-on fee to go to the player or something, that's a bit much, but I don't know if it sits well with me that we apparently just flat out refuse to renegotiate. Like we touched upon last week, that is the principled and gentlemanly thing to uphold. But fuck, man, like sometimes you got to do a deal with the devil to get things across the line. And even if he is toxic, then we can sell him later, And I don't think he's the type of guy whose value would decrease because he's so young and his talent is very obvious. So if it were me, I would have liked to have seen us try, but whatever, it's done. Let's move on.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it was interesting. I mean, listening to all of you last week also, there's still so much we don't know. That's the thing that bothers me. It's, like the stories are different and everyone kind of takes the facts that seem to, make their position strongest, which, I know that's earth shattering, but that's what everyone seems to do. But to me, like you're saying, Jay, like if it was down to like, a couple $100,000 here and there, like I understand the principle, but if they are, firing agents or, diverting money that was going somewhere else, then I'm not sure why you take such a harsh stand. And then also the thing that never really quite made sense to me, and it kind of filters into the way things are heading out now with Pavard, is I don't really understand what the need for him was in the first place. I mean, midfield is our area of strength. And the fact that, we still didn't have or were linked credibly to a real forward, if you count Arnautovic, fine. But, and we weren't linked to a center back. And then all of a sudden this deal falls through and now, we're making a push for Pavard. It's like, well, how was this guy prioritized over the holes that exist in our squad? And so the whole thing just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't understand why we were going in so hard on him on the first place. Even though I do like him as a player, I can understand why he would be attractive to us. The management of it and around it, I don't really understand.
I think it would have been okay. Yeah, he's definitely a luxury. There's no question about that. The structure deal was actually great. We send a young talent in Fabian to Udinese. The plan was obviously for him to develop. We retained a very reasonable buyback price. and then we get a young player who we can test. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does, we have a potential young, attacking talent in our squad. That's something I feel like we've lacked for a long time, especially in midfield. When's the last time we had like a really technically skilled midfielder? It's probably Mkhitaryan, you know what I mean? Or Sensi, who's injured 11 months out of the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just, like I said, one of those things. We don't know what the renegotiated demands were. All we know was that Inter seemed to hold firm on, I don't care what you're asking. Doesn't matter if you're asking for €1 more. The answer is no. And like I said, while that is objectively the correct stance to take, sometimes you just gotta, bend your own rules to get things done, in my opinion. And I'm a little bit disappointed we didn't do that. And of course, now what annoys me the most is, well, everyone knows where our deal fell short. These teams, namely Juve, are probably going to swoop in, offer Udinese the exact same deal, and then go and offer Samardzic the same salary plus like 500k, and it's going to get done in a matter of like hours. You know what I mean? Because we've already set the groundwork to get that deal done. Everyone knows what Udinese accepted for Samardzic. And even though there were rumors of Udinese, refusing to sell him to anyone else, money talks. If someone goes and offers 22, 25 million for this guy, I don't think they're saying no, to be honest. They don't owe us any more than what they did, which was to, talk to the player, talk to the agent and say, sign the bloody contract. But they've done what they can. I can easily see him being sold to another club this window.
Yeah, he's been frozen out of the Udinese squad. You would think at this point he's training alone. They're not going to play him this weekend. I'd be shocked if they did. The thing is, we agreed to such low wages with him too that it'd be very easy for another team like a Juve or even a Lazio to come in and one up what we were previously offering him to take him away.
Exactly. And on that note, I do think he was actually reintegrated into full team training. So looks like they're already kind of over the whole transfer saga. It's back to business as normal.
Yeah, but they play Juventus this weekend, so there's no chance he plays.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's pivot to the Juventus preview here. It's been a pretty quiet summer, all things considered. They brought in an American from Lille. They brought in Weah. They've had a lot of players leave, mostly on free transfers. Quadrado, Di Maria. Of course, Monaco went and gifted them obscene amounts of money for Zakaria for reasons unknown. But they really haven't had much in terms of ingoing transfers. Apparently, they've agreed to terms with Berardi, not Sassuolo. Vlahovic, will he stay? Will he go? It sure seems like he's going to stay. If he goes, will they make a move for Lukaku? There's a lot up in the air, perhaps more so with any other club in the league than Juve as we head into the last couple weeks of the window. So, Irfan, break down Juventus for me.
Yeah, I think for Juventus, it's going to come down to them staying healthy. And, their moves so far don't bother me. Like, I don't think that they're materially weaker or stronger than they were last year. I think they will actually miss Quadrado. I don't know if they'll miss Di Maria that much. For them, if they can get all their players healthy, then I think they're a formidable team. Like, they spent a lot of the last year without Chiesa. If he can be healthy and find his, pre-injury form, then I think they're going to be very dangerous. Now, Allegri also, I know everyone feels a certain way about him, and I agree with his tactics and stuff, but he does get results, and I can totally see him grinding 1-0 wins, all the way up to a pretty high finish. I think Weah is going to be pretty good for them, and I don't think that they're going to get rid of Vlahovic. The amount of money at play is just too much. I don't think they're going to find somebody that's going to give them the kind of deal that they're looking for. And so I don't think they're going to end up with Lukaku either. People seem to think that Juventus is going through some kind of a, fall or some kind of a, banter era of themselves. And it doesn't necessarily seem that way, especially when you look at the fact that had they not been sanctioned last year, they were, I think, on equal points with us. And so that, to me, the results on the pitch were still pretty decent last year. And I expect them to be better this year. So I don't know. Like, I think Juventus is going to be pretty good. I think they'll be in the running for the Scudetto pretty much the whole year, assuming that their players stay healthy. I think that's the biggest kind of wild card I see with them.
Yeah, but the key factor for me is that they don't have the Euro games at all. It will be only Serie A that will play a huge part because they can like focus only the league games. And well, like Irfan said, that if players like Chiesa and Pogba can stay healthy, that will play a big role in their season.
I don't think Pogba makes a difference, but Vlahovic, that guy's got some injury concerns. You know what I mean? I think he has the same injury as Sensi, doesn't he? The adductor. Sorry, that's one of the tricky injuries.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
He's been also injured,
Yeah.
He hasn't been like too good when he's played for Allegri. But if he can find his form or like his role better in the Allegri football, maybe.
Is Allegri's aura wearing off? I feel like the atmosphere around Juve last season was pretty toxic. You know, they had in like the last 2 years they've had a couple of scandals, which is normal for them, I guess. They had all their directors resign, and then there were sanctioned points, and then a lot of their fans, seem to have turned on Allegri. I think it's a mix of like, you can endure that kind of football if you're getting results, but if you're not, then it becomes, why are we putting up with this horrendous, unenjoyable football if we're not even, grinding out trophies or impressive results? So
yeah.
I wonder if Allegri's kind of, if that aura has gone. Like, I don't see him as this kind of infallible, tactically excellent coach as I did maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah. Irfan mentioned about the points and how many points Juventus collected last season, and it was the big part of it was the big winning streak in autumn when they won like several games. I don't know, was it like 1-0 for several games, but they won a lot of 1-0 games, and I feel like can they like repeat that, because it was pretty horrible. I would say some of those were pretty lucky to get those 1-0 victories in that winning streak. That's Allegri football. And
exactly,
I get it, but I think they need to find something else than that, and that something else might be Pogba, maybe, and of course, like mentioned several times, maybe, but like said that players need to stay healthy. These key players.
I was going to ask. I've heard elsewhere that Juve, they essentially had to meet certain financial parameters, and that they had to earn 150 or 140 million through player sales. I was thinking that can't be right. Like, I thought ours was bad when we had to sell, raise 60 million or whatever. Has anyone else heard this?
Yeah, I remember reading this 150 million or what was it? But
yeah, it's 150, 100 million or so. But like, that is obscene money. Like, how are they possibly going to invest and raise that money? I guess you've got teams like Lazio and Monaco throwing cash at them for their trash, but even still, like Zakaria for 20, Rovella and Pellegrini for 20, but they still got 100 million left.
Yeah, that's only like 40. So
exactly,
I don't know. Yeah, I remember that also, but I don't know what was it about. Was it like for the whole season, so they can sell next June or
right?
But no idea. I just remember that number as well.
Yeah, because surely what I'm thinking is, if we're predicting them to finish second or fight for the Scudetto or whatever, consider that they have to make or deduct essentially 100 million worth of value from their current squad. Are we still predicting them to finish first to fourth? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if they need to sell like in the next 2 weeks in this window, then it's a different. If they need to make like 100 million, like big blow for them at that point, if that's like needed. But I don't know. There's been, or at least I haven't seen like too many rumors of players getting linked to Juve. Like any semi big players or semi there's been not much going on with Juve in the calcio
So-
mercato.
Yeah, they can't really sign many people because you can only have so large of a squad when you aren't playing European football, and they still have a ton of players. Like they're trying to unload McKennie, I believe.
Oh yeah, and
Bonucci, they need to get rid of. They've pretty much frozen him out and told him to get lost. So when you have all these deadweight players on pretty high wages, like they just can't afford to sign anyone right now, and that's why they've signed pretty much one player this summer.
yeah, and was there this rumor of this Ealing
Samuel
Junior?
Ealing Jr. Yeah.
Yeah, and that he would be sold for 20 million as well, and
Jesus, come on.
like, but he's like, I don't know, he's 19, maybe he's some like super prospect. I don't know.
I don't think any of the Juve youth players are super prospects, but they played them to the point where they're competent young players. You know what I mean? So they take chances, they give their all because they're young and they want to leave an impression, and it translates to good performances on the pitch. I'm thinking of like Miretti and Sula and
Fagioli.
Fagioli, yeah, Fagioli. Yeah, Ealing Jr. is the other one, but I mean, I have trouble gauging how good someone like Miretti is, to be honest. I've heard Juve fans saying that they wouldn't sell him for 50, 60 million, and then I've heard other Juve fans saying that he's he's solid but not spectacular. So I like I
So
said,
he's
from what I've seen, they look okay, but it's hard to say, man.
He's the Duncan of Juve, huh? I remember people claiming Duncan was like a $50-60 million player for us, and I was like, wait, what?
Let's but before we go to this podcast's true favorite team, Milan, let's talk about Roma for a minute. So it's been an abysmal summer. They have no money. They sold Ibanez to Saudi Arabia for like 40 million, which is absurd. And all they've done is take players on either Bosmans or loans. So they've got Renato Sanchez in on loan, Indeka from Frankfurt, and Awa from Lyon. So they've invested a lot in the midfield. Their attack is unchanged. Their defense is unchanged.
They got Paredes too. He returned.
And yeah, that's a good call too. Paredes is that done? I saw that was in the works.
I saw the official announcement on Instagram. Definitely done.
Okay, so yeah, they've invested a ton in the midfield. The attack is unchanged. Just to maybe paint the picture of how bad Roma's attack is. They're starting a 3-5-2 this weekend, and the projected starters are Belotti and El Shaarawy, who both peaked about 7 to 10 years ago. Does anyone think Roma can actually challenge for a Champions League spot?
No, I think the biggest factor there is honestly Mourinho. It pains me to say it, but I think he doesn't have it anymore. I think top four is the best he could do if everyone was fit and if he had like a more fleshed out squad. But I just don't think he had much more than that to give anymore. And do you know how long Dybala's out for?
Okay.
And Dybala's, critical to how they play, especially with Mourinho's kind of turgid, offensive tactics.
I think Dybala suspended, not injured for this game.
All right.
But yeah, he's the heartbeat of the team. If he's not on the pitch, they don't really have any players irate aside from. No, I'm not going to say Brian Cristante. They have no players irate.
You don't rate Pellegrini?
Talk about he is also suspended. I'm just looking at this. I can't tell you how bad this projected lineup for Roma against Salernitana is. Every time I think of a player who's like, I kind of like him, is either suspended or injured. It's hilarious.
Well, I will say this about their loss of Ibanez. Lazio fans wore Lazio jerseys with Ibanez on the back because he kept fucking up in the derbies, you know what I mean? So it may be a blessing in disguise for them to offload him and get that big transfer fee. We were linked to Ndika as well. He's one of those names that's been kind of linked to a lot of big teams in the past year or two. Who knows whether he'll develop at Roma? I think there's a good chance he'll do okay. But Yeah, I don't know. For me, the biggest factor is Mourinho, and sadly, I don't think he's got it. And then on top of that, Dybala, being unreliable in fitness as well.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think if Dybala is healthy, I'm not as sour on Mourinho as you are, Jay. I think he still has, what it takes. Definitely lost a little bit of luster, but I think they can be decent. But the forward situation really does worry me. I mean, I'm not. I don't think Belotti is as useless as a lot of people, probably most people think. But I also don't think that he's somebody that can carry that team or lead that line. I don't know how long.
League last
Yeah,
season.
exactly. I don't know how long Abraham's going to be injured, but I think the
Quite
the
a
problem.
while. He did his ACL, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I mean,
Something.
and Mourinho's been asking for a forward. I mean, the fact that they can't give him a striker is probably going to tank their chances at a top four. With a competent striker and Dybala healthy, and if things kind of click for them, I do think that they have a shot at the top four, but not without adding somebody in the next 2 weeks. I just don't see it.
An outside chance.
Yeah. That maybe that midfield is something that if they like you said, if it clicks, it can like do something with these new guys. But if those three guys in the midfield, the new guys, make it work, that could be something that can maybe so-called save Mourinho. But yeah, it's gonna be tough to make it top four with that attack. I see the rumor of Zapata, your favorite. It was like a loan or plus option or something. So it's really tough for Roma, or it seems it's tough situation financially. They need to sell like for 30 million, and they can't invest at all. I wouldn't be surprised if Mourinho if he just quits at some point. I was actually thinking that maybe he will quit during the summer if he isn't getting his forward at all. But nothing so far.
Yeah, I wish for his sake he would have won the Europa League and kind of mic dropped out, kind of his legacy, because I don't see how they have a good year this year.
Yeah, it will be hard to get better. Did they make to the Europe League again?
Yeah, they're in the Europa League.
Yeah, but it will be hard to get to the final again and try doing it. So it's tough to top last season for them, and it will just look bad for Mourinho, and and he will do his show as usual when it's not going well for them.
Okay, the next team I want to talk about is Atalanta. They've had, in my opinion, an excellent summer, bias aside. So they sold Højlund for, as we like to joke, $1 billion, and they've spent the money, which is nice to see, because you know how these Italian clubs tend to just, sincerely Roma, sell a player for a lot of money and just sit on it. But they went out, they signed Scamacca, they signed Bilal Torre, they signed another defender from Leverkusen. They've reinvested in the team. They haven't sold Scalvini, so he's back. They underperformed last year, and I think we're all looking around thinking, hey, maybe the Gasperini magic has worn off. Personally, I was even hoping that Gasperini would quit and take the Italian national team job, which obviously isn't happening. But I like what they've done with the squad, and if they can unload Zapata on a sucker like Roma and go into this with a younger attack, you use Lookman, use Muriel, use Scamacca together, I think Atalanta is a team who can get back to competing for a Champions League spot. I'm definitely not saying they're going to compete to win the league, but I think you'll see them bounce back and be more of in the 4, 5, 6 range of the table, whereas last year it was just a horrible year for them by their standards, what we've come to expect under Gasperini, and I think they missed out on Europe entirely, finishing behind Fiorentina. So I think they're an easy bounce back candidate for me to buy into.
Yeah, it seems they replaced Højlund with 2 young talents, Scamacca and the other guy. I think he was their record signing, and then they just broke the record straight away again with Scamacca. So they've got 2 big forward signings. Who knows if they'll click, but from what I've seen, their profiles look pretty complementary. And then you've got Lookman there as well. They're always going to be dangerous. They always have that chance of just tearing some team to shreds, you know what I mean? I remember when Pessina was doing quite well at Atalanta, thinking to myself that it's not Pessina that's the most impressive midfielder. It's easily Crip Miners, you know? He's still there. I think he's only getting better. I do think they need to upgrade on De Roon, to be honest. And they lost Mela, who I actually rated. But
Me too. Yeah.
And is Zappacosta still there? Still there?
Yeah,
Right
still
now.
at third right wing back.
Yeah. I think there's still some pretty, glaring gaps, such as, those ones I mentioned, De Roon, Zappacosta, left wing back. But yeah, if their midfield and attack has a good game, they can blow any team out of the water.
But last year, their issue was defense, right? I mean, I think, have they made investments in defense? You think that they'll be better?
Well, they sold Demiral to the Saudis.
Yeah. So I think you hope Scalvini gets better, and they did sign a new left wing back, and I don't know if this guy's any good, but the one from Leverkusen. So you figure just because of how compact they play, their team is really more of a five strength at the back than Inter, so to speak. Like Zappacosta and this Bakker, or however you pronounce it, are both going to be playing more defensive, kind of how the way Gosens did. Like, you would hope the defense will improve, but to your point, they lost Demiral. Inter could sign Toloi after we inevitably miss out on Pavard. Like, I could see their defense not being good next year.
Yeah,
I see Atalanta signing Pavard. No, just
they probably have more money than we do.
There's no probably about it, but let's not dwell on
that. Yeah, but they also have the Europe League, so maybe that's something they need to pay attention. That could hinder them a bit.
Didn't Atalanta miss out on Europe entirely last season?
No, they were fifth.
No, I think Juve dropped out of the conference, and that went to Atalanta, right? No, it went to Fiorentina.
Atalanta was fifth.
Okay, yeah, no, you're right. They're Europa League. All right, I'm good.
Yeah. So,
okay.
They have that Edison guy who they got from Salernitana, I thought he picked up towards the end of last season, scored some nice goals. He looked like a clown. I thought when he first started at Atalanta, I thought they'd wasted a lot of money on this guy, but he just grew into the system, familiarity with the tactics, and I think he could have a pretty strong season ahead. Yeah, like I said, I do think they need a better kind of defensive or two-way midfielder than De Roon, although he does the job in Gasperini's system. They've got Pasalic still, I think. He's always going to score goals for them. Yeah, I think they're kind of forward-heavy, though, or attack-heavy, rather. They're a team that'll score more than they'll have to try and score more than they concede.
They really need to unload one of these forwards. They're going to the season right now with Zapata, Scamacca, Muriel, and then the Torre guy. They need to sell an attacker, and I doubt they'll reinvest even more money into the team, but they at least need to free up the logjam. And I think everyone on this podcast knows how I feel about Zapata as a player, so he would definitely be my choice for someone for them to sell, just preferably not to Inter.
Do they still have Boga?
No, he was sold to Nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for 18 million.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't trust Gasperini that much. I don't know. I just don't. I feel like his magic wears. So I'm curious to see, because if you look at them on paper, I agree. I think Atlanta should pretty much be a shoo-in for a top four, but I just don't know. I'm skeptical about Gasperini for some reason.
I don't think there's room for top four for Atalanta. I think
really, even with Inter missing out on the top four,
they're gonna fight with Roma for that. What is it, 5th, 6th spot? I think.
All right, I've been saving this one for Jay, so let's go ahead and get it out of the way.
Fiorentina, go ahead, Jay.
So the only team who has had a busier summer than Inter is Milan. They somehow suckered Newcastle into paying a slightly outrageous amounts for Tonali. And then they just went on a spending spree of buying cast-offs from Chelsea that no one else wanted, along with some players from Spain. So they brought in Chukwueze, they brought in Pulisic, Loftus-Cheek, Rainers, Okafor, Musa, all incoming transfers. I'd say these are midfield heavy signings. Pretty much everyone I just rattled off is either an attacking midfielder or a defensive midfielder, with the exception of Okafor, who's an out and out forward. Jay, tell us why Milan are going to win the league.
There's no question that Milan are going to win the league. Look, the amount of times I've wanted to just throw my screen out the window watching Leao score some like PlayStation goal from his own half, literally, just it's outrageous. It shouldn't happen. And I feel like Chukwueze could offer them the same outlet on the right. Essentially, they have like a cheat code for the league in Leao. You know, Leao comes up against these Donadoni, Gabberini type players. Gamberini, you remember him from Fiorentina? He comes up against these ancient Italian defenders and just tortures them. And I feel like they have the most pace in the league. Leao just needs one out ball and he can pretty much win the game by himself. I think what they're going for is to basically revolutionize the midfield. It seems like Pioli is changing from a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3. That 3 is going to be really compact. That 3 is athletic and dynamic with Musa and Reinders. I don't know who's going to fill the third spot. Looks like Loftus-Cheek for now because Benasser is injured and Krunic is always going to be that, you know, utility player. So they have a dynamic and, like I said, athletic midfield. They only need to shield the back four, which is also leaky. I think even Milan fans are having a little bit of doubt about Tomori now. He had a pretty bad season last season, if I remember correctly. And Malik Chow, who was considered just like an amazing signing for that price, I think they're also starting to see that he's, you know, quite raw, quite undeveloped. So their defense is a little bit suspect, but as we've seen in this league, pace, physicality can make up for a lot of deficiencies, and they have that in abundance, you know, that athleticism. So I suspect they'll sit deep with their midfield, stay compact, shield the back four, absorb pressure, and just play these direct balls out to Chukwueze and Leao and Okafor, and I suspect that tactic will win them quite a lot of games. I don't care for Pulisic at all, to be honest. I don't rate him. I don't think he'll be particularly successful, but I think Chukwueze is a really good signing. He's got at Spanish and European pedigree as well. He's done well in Europe, I think against Arsenal or Man United. I remember having some great games. So yeah, I think they're gonna do what they did when they won a couple of seasons ago and just take advantage of the rest of the league just shitting itself and just like, you know, dismantling themselves as Juve have to do, we have to do, as we have to do. And I think they'll fill that gap, unfortunately.
And Magic Mike is healthy again, right? So they're going to have him.
Presumably he's back. So, you know, now that there's no more competition for best goalkeeper in the league, now that we have to still Onana, you know, I've never rated Teo Hernandez as much as Milan fans or as much as, you know, most people do. But, you know, I don't deny he's effective in attack at least, and that he's going to score probably, you know, he's going to have minimum 10 goal contributions this season, 5 goals, 5 assists kind of thing. He always does. I don't know who the hell the right back's going to be, Calabria or Florenzi. And I think Salamakers is a useful utility player. They sold Messias to Genoa. But
they lost Brahim Diaz too.
Brahim Diaz, yeah. I'm amazed at how effective that guy was with his one skill of just sprinting in a straight line towards the opponent's goal. But like I said, pace really is a game breaker in this league where, I mean, how old is Smalling? How old is Acerbi? These guys are still starting defenders for the big teams. So I think they've got the pace. I think they've got that kind of secret weapon. And yeah, I honestly think they'll do better than what most people think. I think Tonali was like a 50 million player at max, and then they somehow got 80 million for him.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna miss Tonali at all. Frankly,
yeah,
I think that he ended up being, I think, so overrated in Serie A and on that team. He played well. There's no doubt about that. But he's by no means some kind of generational talent that they're going to struggle to recover from. The thing that I find interesting about Leao is, he won the Serie A MVP, or like the most valuable player when they won the Scudetto 2 years ago. And last year, if you look at his stats, they're actually even better. He had 11 goals and 8 assists that year where he won the MVP. And last year he had 15 goals and 8 assists. But he just seemed a lot more quiet last year.
Maybe he took the first half of the season off pretty much.
Yeah,
really
yeah.
came to life in the second half.
Yeah, he just seemed a lot more quiet, and a lot of times you would watch him play and he wasn't really even in the game that much. And so it's going to be interesting what kind of Leao they get. I think the issue, I agree with you that their signings have been intriguing and they've been pretty good. I also think Pulisic will probably struggle a little bit in Serie A. I rate him more than you, but I don't think it's a great fit for him here. But we'll see
how. There's no
how
role for him in a 4-3-3 anyway. Unless he plays in left wing, but that's Leao's spot. He's not going to start over Leao.
Yeah, it's an interesting signing for them. I'm curious how they're going to build this team and what kind of lineup they're going to have out there. It's going to be interesting to see. It's like they've got a bunch of talented players, but I don't know how they're all going to mesh together. The thing that I think is going to be interesting for them is they seem to struggle on defense, and you talked about Tomori. They also, I think, struggled at times to score goals. I'm curious to see how Giroud's going to be this year. Obviously, the setup around him is going to be really good, but as far as I recall, they haven't really gotten a real striker either. They're going to rely on Giroud. Now, Leao and Chukwueze will handle a lot of the scoring and the creativity, and maybe just lay it on a platter for Giroud. But it's going to be interesting to see, because he's also a year older. He's effective in his role, but these guys are getting up there in age, and I'm curious to see how they're going to do. And Leao also has pretty abysmal stats in the Champions League. I think he had 1 goal in 11 matches last year. So I think they're gonna need all the players that they got, because they're gonna have a lot of matches, and it'll be interesting to see how they all mesh together. But talent-wise, I agree with you; they should be in the running.
You failed to acknowledge Leao has inherited the number 10 shirt. This is an enormous factor, and we'll no doubt give him that edge.
How could I have forgotten that? That should be the top of my mind. Yeah.
The thing about Milan I find interesting, they're very much the inverse of Inter in my eyes, in that last year Milan excel at getting out and running at teams. They're fast. They're pretty lethal on counterattacks. They unlike Inter, they take chances well. I think they're a clinical team, but they really struggle to break teams down. When they play against these lower table sides who like to sit back and park the bus, they do not have the players needed to just systematically break down a defense. So they really struggled at times to score goals last year when teams were sitting back and not letting them play that counter-attacking, running style of football. And it's really the complete opposite of Inter, who cannot get out and run, cannot convert counterattacks, but who instead excel at set pieces, swinging crosses in, and just really overwhelming you with sheer volume of chances. So it's really two opposite approaches, and you saw it work for Inter numerous times against Milan last year, because we could really pull a goal out of nothing. Zecco in the Champions League final, scoring that sweet volley. There were just numerous times where we were able to produce chances where seemingly weren't there. So that's why I think maybe Inter succeeded against Milan head-to-head last year. But over the course of a season, I think, Leao kind of is a cheat code in this league, and no one has proven able to consistently stop him.
Yeah, I think Leao needs to find his next level. He needs to take the step forward in terms of being more consistent. If they want to if he wants to be a true great player, because as you guys said, he's sometimes he's just switching off even in the middle of the games, and it hurts a lot. For the team, if this level of guy isn't there completely.
Yeah, I can't think of any team that's more reliant on one player than Milan and Leao.
I was just gonna say he reminds me, the way they use him. It reminds me of the way we used to use Zlatan under Mancini. It's it's a lot of times, even when they're passing the ball around, they basically look for him, and then everybody just kind of stares at him and sees, what he can do, and if he can take on a player and put in a cross, or if he can assist somebody, or if he can rattle a shot off. Like they're so reliant on him, and even on the pitch at times, it seems like a lot of the Milan players end up ball watching when he has the ball and just waiting for him to do something.
Yeah.
If you think they're reliant on him, wait until you see our attack this year, reliant on Lautaro.
Yeah, I just wanted to add for the Milan midfield that I think it's super important for them or for Pioli to get their game working and get the midfielders to have the system in their minds so that they can play effectively, because there's so many new players in the midfield, but also in the attack, that like creating chances, what Andrew talked about. It might be a struggle at the start. So that's maybe the place for the rivals to get some lead in the points regarding fighting with Milan.
Yeah,
if they struggle at the start, but there's some work for Pioli to get that thing working. If they can like click right from the start, a bit like Roma, if they can get it working well, that could be like a possible dangerous situation for the rivals then.
Yeah, funny. So you mentioned Pioli, and per Jay's recommendation, I was listening to the Some from Milan podcast yesterday, and if you look at the top 5-6 teams in the league, I'd say Pioli's probably the worst manager of the bunch. Like I would, we talk about the Allegri magic wearing off. I would still take Allegri over Pioli. I would definitely take Sarri over Pioli. Inzaghi is probably the only conversation I'd be willing to have, because Inzaghi has proven to really be a bit of a poor league manager and a cup specialist. But when you look at the team that's but seriously though, like if you look at Pioli as a manager, I trust him less than pretty much any of these top guys. And maybe that's because I've seen him manage before for both Inter and Milan. But if I've learned one thing, at pretty much every stop along the way, he has had a point where the team absolutely breaks down into shambles, whether it be Lazio the season after he qualified for the Champions League, Inter after his initial run of success. I wouldn't be surprised to see Pioli struggle to fully adjust tactics and this entirely blow up. Like, that would not shock me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree there. I do think, by the way, on their midfield, I think Yunus Musa is a good player. I'm not just saying that because he's American. I honestly think he's a solid player who has good years ahead of him. I think he'll be very good for them.
It is nice to see all these Americans in the league. We mentioned Weah, Juventus, Musa, Pulisic. It's a good injection of talent into the league.
If only we got Balogun, but
All right, so I think we don't need to go over Inter. We talked about Inter enough as is. So let's, at this point, pause. We can go around the room and let's do top 4 predictions, including your Scudetto winner. And if you want, you can throw a lead goal scorer prediction in there. So, Mikko, I'll start with you.
All right. I'm going to go with Inter. Inter winning. And because I feel like despite you were having no European games, we have a better squad, and that will prevail.
Arnautovic top scorer.
Yeah. Yeah. Inter first, and then Juve second, because of they can focus on one thing only, and then I'm gonna go with Napoli, Milan. The rest of the top 4. I think Napoli has enough quality to compete, but like I said at the start, they will struggle a bit because no additions to the squad, but actually the starting player was taken off, and then of course the coach was downgraded a lot. So that's my take on the top 4. Milan, they are like, I'm not like totally sure they are top 4, but I'm gonna put them there. I don't trust those Roman teams enough this time.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to heavily caveat my answer with the fact that if we get Pavard, I will completely amend my predictions. But assuming we don't end up getting Pavard, if the teams are the way they are right now, I have Juve winning the league. I have Napoli second. I have Inter third, and I have, I guess, Atalanta and Milan battling for fourth. I'll give it to Milan for fourth, and put Atalanta at 5. I think Fiorentina, though, might surprise people. Not Scudetto level surprise, but I think they could potentially surprise people. But if we end up getting Pavard, I would put us at the top. I think he's that important of a signing, and I've made my predictions clear on I'm okay with any forward that they put out there as long as we get Pavard. So with him, I put Inter at the top of the Scudetto, but without him, I'm giving it to Juve. And for top goal scorer, I'm going to go with Osimhen again.
Milan first, top scorer Leao, Inter second, Juve third, Napoli fourth.
Just so on brand.
What about you, Andrew?
So I'm very pessimistic about Inter heading into the season, which I guess isn't a surprise to anyone, but we lost 12 league games last year. And as I look at our squad, I think it's worse than it was last season.
Yeah.
The Inzaghi, I do not trust Inzaghi in league play. He is fantastic at these knockout games, these cup competitions, but over the course of a league season, he hasn't shown an ability to balance multiple competitions. And that's why I'm out on Inter winning the Scudetto. I'm going to go with Juventus. I place a lot of value in them not having Champions League football, European football to worry about. When you have one game a week, a more compact squad, it just feels like a path forward, and I'm not willing to bet against Allegri in that environment. And like we all been saying, last year they would have finished second in this league, tied with Inter, third in the league, tied with Inter and ahead of Milan based on their performances. And they were pretty abysmal last season. I think they left a lot of meat on the bone. And maybe if Pogba is healthy, if Chiesa comes back healthy, then I think Juventus is the strongest team. I will go
the psychological blow of them being deducted the points. You know, I remember, I think it was 2 games, or like the game after that announcement was made, they just bombed. They lost the game, and they had like a bit of a poor run. Our season's over, you know what I mean? So with that gone, with that burden lifted, yeah, and as you said, 1 game per week to focus on. That's like Conte's dream, you know what I mean? A manager like Conte or Allegri, that's their dream. So they'll be dangerous.
My answer will change if Juventus sells Vlahovic or they sign Berardi and do some other things. But right now I'm going with them. I will take Milan second. I'm going out on a limb on this one because I feel like there's a lot more unknown with them. We don't know how these pieces are going to gel together, but Leao is the best player in this league, and I think that counts for something. I'm going Napoli third, kind of along similar logic of just great individual talents, and then I'm going to take Inter fourth. So we're going to get Champions League football. I'm confident we're going to get Champions League football. But if we finish a point or 2 behind Napoli, I would not be surprised, especially because I would not be surprised if Inzaghi is able to muster a good, deep Champions League run again when you consider that we're going to be a pot 2 team. We should get a favorable draw. You know, if things shake out right, I could totally see this team ending up in the quarterfinals again. And then at that point, I just, like I said, don't trust Inzaghi to balance both competitions appropriately, especially when you consider how thin the squad is. And for a lead scorer, I will go ahead and take Leao.
Seriously? Oh my god.
No, I'm not picking Leao to lead the league in scoring. No, I like I was saying last week, I'm taking Skamaka.
Ooh,
Wow. Okay.
Got to be bold. Going with the brand.
just to really rub it in for yourself.
Just to prove how right I was. I want vindication.
I'm gonna go with. I forgot to say my top scorer. I'm gonna also go with Osimhen.
Not Lautaro? Your boy Lautaro? No.
No.
Well, when you don't
no.
score for 2 months at a time, it's hard to lead the league in scoring.
Yeah.
When you don't score for 2 months at a time, 4 times a year, it's hard to.
Hey,
It's hard to
three
score.
times. 3 times a year. 3 times a year. If we would have gotten Morata, I would have said he would have been the leading scorer. Just to be on brand with Jay picking Leao and Andrew picking Skamaka. I would have thrown.
Notice how no one picked Thuram, but yeah, whatever. Let's not go there. He's being paid more than Leao as far as I know, but let's not go.
All right. Well, he doesn't love the squad the way Leao loves Milan. All right. So we've been talking for a while. Let's just spend a few minutes on the Monza match. So the season kicks off tomorrow or today, depending on where you are and when you're listening to this. We could not do anything against Monza last year. It was a struggle. It's kind of, I don't know if it's like the Berlusconi magic. I don't know if it's the fact they have so many former Inter players and the curse just bears out. But we drew with them 2-2 thanks to a Dumfries own goal in the 93rd minutes. That was the January fixture, I think, after the World Cup. And then, do you guys recall what the first match against Monza was last season?
That was the first.
That was the first match.
That was the first. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
The second match was Calderola scored 1, and then we lost 1-0 at home. I think
Yes,
Calderola scored at I think the Dumfries own goal that you're referring to was a Calderola goal as well. I think he scored in both games.
Yeah.
That
So we could not beat Monza last year. They've won out and they have not spent much money because they cannot. I was explaining this on the forum the other day. Basically, everyone they took last season, when you're like, this guy seems a little too good to be on Monza, they had signed on a loan with an obligation if they stayed up. And they did manage to stay up, so they had to go redeem all those guys. So really the extent of their signings were taking, D'Ambrosio and Gagliardini on free transfers. Monza runs a similar formation to us. They do a 3-4-1-2. They have Capari up top, who, correct me if I'm wrong, was he not like Inter plus Valenza fodder at some point?
Yeah, we traded him for Skriniar. We brought him as a part
Yeah.
exchange from Samp. No,
Yeah.
we sold him to Samp. Yeah, as part of the. Where did we get him from? Pescara, maybe?
Yes.
Pescara, yeah.
Yeah, we bought him from
So-
Pescara, never played in our shirt, and we just sold him as part of the Skriniar deal. Yeah, it's a tough game to call. I mean, it's the first game of the season. I only have one thing that I want to see, and that is proof that our players are actually fit. Because if you guys remember last season, we didn't look fit for like 2 months into the season. The players looked like they were still in preseason. I was shocked. I've never seen anything like that in my life, where a team looks so unfit at the start of the season. I'm like, what's going on here? And being fit is it's like a bare minimum professional standard, right? It's like wearing shoes to work or something. Like everyone does it, it's unacceptable not to do it. And yet here we are dropping points, losing games so early into the season, pretty much tanking any chance we had of winning the Scudetto straight away because our players looked like they were exhausted.
Yeah, I think my biggest question going into this match is who's going to score the 88th minute goal for Monza? Is it going to be D'Ambrosio or Calderola?
Calderola.
Yeah, Calderola seems like the right man.
The Ambrosio back post header for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be one of those. And then I can't wait to see Gagliardini just, embarrass entire midfield. So I'm it's like half that team is Inter. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how we fare. It's not a great matchup for us, I think, because of what you all said about how we did last year. They're a tricky team. They also got good results against other clubs. It wasn't just Inter.
Yeah,
they got good
Juve.
results. Yeah, so I think it'll be a tricky match. Fitness will be an issue. Let's see how everything comes together and clicks. But I have to say, on a more positive note, I'm so excited that the season's back and that we'll be able to watch again. It's honestly, it's so cool that we're finally at that point again where we
Like
can be
50%,
disappointed every weekend.
It's like 50% excitement, 50% dread for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I said, I just want to see the players are fit, but I actually think it's a good opportunity to play Monza first. It's an opportunity to get that monkey off our back. You know what I mean? These guys kind of took advantage of us twice last season, partly due to our own incompetence. And they beat us in these two extremely banterish results. And yeah, like I said, new season, fresh start, chance to right the wrongs of last season and hopefully show up fit and ready to play. And I think if we're fit, we should win with relative ease.
Yeah. I think that this being the home game, it's like a nice extra boost for us. We can start from the home and the Lazio. It's of course it's sold out, so that's a nice thing. Like for the whole last season, but it didn't help us enough. But anyway, we stole Monza's best player, so that's also one thing to consider.
Yeah, I was going to say 2-0 Inter, braced by Sensi. That's my prediction.
Okay, good enough. But about the thing that who was it who mentioned that we lost 12 games last season, so it was like we lost and drew with Monza, so that there's like plus 5 points we can count on already for us. So isn't it so?
The thing I'm most curious for tomorrow is Thuram. And you read Inter fans and they're already freaking out. They're saying this is the worst transfer ever, and everyone's panicking. And I think part of the reason for the panic is because we signed a 34-year-old as our alternative up front. But I would just love for Thuram to tomorrow go play well, maybe assist a Lautaro goal because he's not going to score himself, and just grow into the team and get the monkey off his back, because I don't want to be sitting here in middle of September. He hasn't scored a goal yet. Everyone's panicking about the attack. Inzaghi's thinking about starting Correa. This is a good opportunity tomorrow. It's a home fixture. I'd love to see him step up, play well, and just really settle the nerves of Inter fans collectively.
Agreed, because he's now that we've shown our hand and revealed our big signing was, not Lukaku, not Scamacca, not Balogun, but Arnautovic. Now that we've revealed that, we've also revealed that Thuram is our undisputed starting striker, unless he just completely shits the bed and Arnautovic starts ahead of him. So we need him to do well. We need him to start living up to that expectation and proving that he honestly deserves to be here. I have questions myself, to be honest, but yeah. Sorry, the latest about Pavard seems serious, but a lot of pessimism, which is to be expected considering the way, Scamacca and Samardžić were both like 90+% done. In the instance of Samardžić, 99.9% done, and yet neither of them signed. What do you reckon is going to happen with Pavard? Do you think we'll sign him, or do you think this will be another we didn't sign him over a difference of like 5 million?
Wait, I'm gonna read here what Inzaghi said apparently today in his press conference. He said trading the UEFA nomination. He got the nomination for the best coach. Yeah. So he said that trading the UEFA nomination with Pavard ? Certainly, I say it's a goal, but I don't feel like talking about players from other teams. Darmian has been essential in these 2 years, but I need players who can compete in all roles. So he at least named Pavard, or I don't know, was it like a question? Maybe it was a question for him, but it's gonna be interesting to see, because I've heard that we are really trying to get him even today. I'm mildly pessimistic that Chang will will fuck this up again, and he just won't give us the budget to sign him, because Bayern will they won't like they won't back down from their like asking price for too much, because they don't need that money, so they can just use him for 1 year and let him walk for free, because that's more beneficial for them. So that's why I'm a bit pessimistic. But
the summer negotiation proved that if you try to negotiate with them, you end up paying more than what you're supposed to pay. So let's just not mess around. Let's just pay whatever they want and just get it done, because it's not even that unreasonable. But I do have a question. Is he worth 35-40 million? Because what I see from Pavard is, I don't want to say excuse, but it's like he's not the preferred centre-back at France, so he has to play right back, and he's not preferred at Bayern Munich either. You know, there's always questions about his position, which basically is a short way of saying, or a roundabout way of saying, every coach seems to prefer other centre-backs to him, so he has to play out of position at right back, and then he gets unhappy that he has to play out of position. You know, but if he was better at his main position, maybe he'd get picked at his main position. So
but one could also see it that way, that maybe there's not too a good enough like right backs, or that Pavard gives the option for the right back position, that the coach likes him more there. But I don't know. I get what you're saying. That
I think we have to hope he's like a Bastoni, in my opinion. Like Bastoni really is perfect in that left side of a 3-man defense. You know, I think that's much better for him than like a 4-back, or obviously as a straight up left back. And the same applies for Pavard. From what I've seen, I think that right centre back role in a 3-man defense really suits him. So yeah, let's hope for once Zhang gives the green light and we just get this bastard.
I think he's worth it. Close the deal.
Yeah. And I don't even like care at this point what's the price, that as long as Chang just gives the budget and we just pay whatever it takes. If it's 35, then it's 35. Like at this point, we just need that preferably starting center back. So
it'll ease my mind a lot more, rather than going into the season with Acerbi and Darmian as designated starters again. I think that would have ended in disaster, to be honest.
Yeah. Let's hope for the best.
Yeah. So the only thing I'll add with Pavard is it's a lot of money and it's a high salary, and he would pretty much be our most expensive player in the squad when you think about like annual impact. And I get a little queasy about doing that for a right center back when we clearly need a striker. And will this like impact our ability to sign a proper forward moving forward? But then the fan side of me says, you know what? This might be our only chance to actually spend money on someone that doesn't get absolutely like bombed by our ownership. So just go get the best player available and figure out the rest later.
Yeah, and he's like he's not like some like up and coming guy. He's like a proven winner, and he has that certain pedigree, in my opinion, that you can go and spend that money for that kind of guy who's like ready to come to Inter at that age. He's like at his prime age, or like hitting his prime years right now. So we should just definitely go and pay. But that's a different story with Chang. But let's hope.
Well, a couple episodes ago, we were talking about the situation in depth. We talked about, maybe signing Demiral. Jay specifically mentioned wanting to sign a center back in his prime. And Pavard is in his prime. And I thought, I think we're getting to the end of this podcast. I thought maybe I'd leave you guys on this note. Let's revisit a soliloquy from Irfan from a couple episodes ago, where he suggests we sign Pavard, even if it means maybe not signing as good of a striker.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. If we could get Pavard, I would be willing to roll the dice on striker with Destro or Arnautovic. get a body. But if you give me Pavard, because I feel like, Pavard at right central back would just be incredible. It would suit our team so well, and the age is right, and the skill level is right, and it would be an incredible signing in my opinion. And so, if that means resources have to be used there and get diverted from somewhere else, like, bring me Destro, bring me Arnautovic. Let's do it. Let's pack it up.